Sound the alarms. Can someone please sound the alarms? We have Spider-Man news to talk about. Okay, I guess there's just gonna be— Oh, God! Oh, they were delayed. Okay. Never do that again. I'm sorry, we have important Spider-Man news to talk about here. I shouldn't be doing bits. This news might come from some random guy on Instagram, and usually I'm not very inclined to believe what they have to say, but here's the thing. This guy has photographic proof of the fact that he attended a Disney Blockbuster Consumer Products presentation, whatever that is, and they were given updates on a number of different Disney films in the works, including Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day. And while we haven't heard anything about Doomsday yet, Disney apparently decided to let slip 3 of the villains who are going to appear in this film. So, I figured I would make a quick video talking about not just this news, but previous rumors we've gotten in the past month about Spider-Man Brand New Day and what we can expect in this film, because I think I can finally start putting these pieces together and paint a mental image of what this movie is going to be, and I think we're about to see a gang war. Just a quick disclaimer that all of these are rumors and come from unreliable sources, so take it with a grain of salt. With how many rumors we get nowadays, it doesn't feel like anything's actually official until we see it in the theater for ourselves. So when all of this is inevitably revealed to be not true within the next week, you can all laugh at me for how incorrect I was getting excited over this stuff, but for now, I'm just gonna celebrate over how much we won, because it seems like a street-level Spider-Man movie is finally on the horizon once again. Okay, that's enough of me being vague. Let me actually talk about who these rumored villains are. According to Chris Higashi on Instagram, he says that Disney announced Spider-Man Brand New Day would include Scorpion, Boomerang, and Tombstone, which is an insane thing to casually drop on us like it's nothing, but I think that is an incredibly exciting prospect that finally helps to point us in any sense of direction for what this movie is supposed to be. That information, paired with other rumors we've gotten over the last few weeks, like this casting information describing how Marvel is currently trying to cast a male for Spider-Man 4 who is in his 30s to 50s to play a villain who is a no-nonsense authority figure who sees the world in black and white, loyal, determined, and willing to cross lines to maintain order. And if that doesn't sound like Mr. Negative, I don't know what does. And one more rumor I wanted to mention comes from those same casting grids that says Marvel is currently trying to cast a female villain between the age of 30 to 50. That's a lot more vague than the very blatant Mr. Negative teases, but it only adds on to this narrative that I've built in my head about what this movie can be. So looking at all this information and the sources they come from, I'm confident enough to say that Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to have 5 major villains. And to me, that really makes it seem like this narrative is going to be a gang war, as we have all these rival criminal empires vying for control of New York City's underworld. And that is the perfect direction to take this character post No Way Home. It also helps that Marvel Comics just ran a gang war event, and they sure do love their synergy. I know that a lot of people, myself included, have been begging Marvel non-stop to give us a Spider-Man and Daredevil team-up film as this big climax to the Fisk crime saga in the MCU. It makes tons of sense with Fisk trying to ban vigilantes, but as much as it hurts me to say it, I have made peace with the fact that we're probably not going to get that. It doesn't seem like Marvel and Sony can agree on anything like that, and Born Again is going to do its own thing and wrap that story up with season 2. That being said, Spider-Man Brand New Day has a very unique opportunity to capitalize on the fallout of that event and continue to develop that side of the universe even further. They can naturally build off of the Kingpin's downfall in Born Again, as we see this power vacuum develop in the heart of New York City's crime syndicate, leaving all these other families to scramble for control, with Spider-Man at the center trying to keep the city stable. And, you know what, now that I think about it, this is kind of just Spider-Man PS4 again. Fisk is arrested at the start of that game, leaving a power vacuum for all these different villains to try and take its place. Mr. Negative, Scorpion, and Tombstone all make an appearance in that game. Are they just doing a live-action adaptation of Spider-Man PS4? That's honestly an insane power move, but as long as they can put their own unique spin on it, which I have no doubts they will considering this is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, then they can run it back as much as they want. And now they can finally explain why Spider-Man has been on fraud watch the last few years, not getting involved with all these New York events, as we see him dealing with this overwhelming amount of gang violence in the city, as he's able to re-establish himself as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man the city needed. And I understand that having 5 different villains could be way too much for the movie and it could crumble under the weight of all those characters. We've seen that exact same thing happen before in a Spider-Man movie with even less characters, so it's a bit of a risk to have 5 different villains in the film, but I think if you make that part of the narrative, it can work very well. Peter is in a place in his life where he's got this newfound sense of responsibility where he's only being Spider-Man. Peter Parker is dead to the rest of the world and he could be throwing himself into his work as Spider-Man as this only safe haven. the one place of peace he can find in life, as he is spending an unhealthy amount of time in the costume. So if you take the one thing he has right now in life and then completely corrupt that by giving him an overwhelming amount of enemies to fight, that would completely destroy his mental health, which is exactly what us sadistic Spider-Man fans are dying to see. And I think it creates a very exciting opportunity for growth, as Peter not only has to step up and defend this city from wave after wave of enemies, but also by the end of the movie, it gives him this realization that he can't just spend all of his time being Spider-Man. He actually has to work on re-establishing himself as Peter Parker to develop a healthy work-life balance. So I would absolutely love to see Peter at the center of this gang war, being overwhelmed by violence on all ends to the point where it's ruining what little he has left of his life. And as for the rumored villains, I honestly don't know if there's a more fitting set of antagonists for Peter to fight in this film. Let's start with Mr. Negative, because it feels like he's going to be the main villain of this movie. And I think that introducing him here, when Peter is at his lowest point mentally and can't trust anyone, is exactly the thing you want to do. One of the last things that Aunt May did before she died was start working at Feast. And I think it would be really sweet if, in her honor, Peter continued to volunteer at Feast to keep her dream alive. So now, imagine if you have Martin Lee come in as the new head of Feast, someone who Peter actually starts to form a genuine bond with because he thinks that Martin shares those same values that May did, only to be using that as a front for his criminal empire, betraying Peter's trust with the earth-shattering reveal to him that the man he finally started to open up to was also trying to kill him. You can't get more exciting and dramatic storytelling than that, as they build off of what came before in No Way Home in a very emotional way, all while giving us a character who makes sense narratively at this point. And with Fisk losing power, now is the perfect time for Martin Lee to step out of the shadows and put his plan into motion as he tries to fill that vacuum with his demons and gain power that way. It makes way too much sense not to do, and I am praying that they pick up on all these breadcrumbs they've left behind. And just imagine what Destin Daniel Cretton's direction would look like for a character like Mr. Negative. We've already seen what he can do with grounded hand-to-hand combat in Shang-Chi, so adding in the addition of superpowers to that could be insane. On top of that though, Shang-Chi made it evidently clear that Cretton has an incredible amount of respect for Chinese mythology, so it makes him the perfect candidate to handle a character like Mr. Negative and adapt him correctly. It would honestly be such a missed opportunity to not go this direction with the film, so I am praying that this is true. And out of all the villains rumored for this movie, if we could only get one, I want it to be Mr. Negative more than any of them. He feels like such a natural foil for Peter at this point in his journey and would open the door for some incredible action scenes. But my greed knows no bounds, so I would absolutely take all these other villains as well, especially someone like the Scorpion, someone we've been waiting to see for over 8 years now. Ever since his brief appearance in Homecoming and that post-credits scene, we have been waiting so goddamn long to see the Scorpion in live action. They set us up with this promise that he wanted revenge on Spider-Man and that it never came to fruition in any of the following films. It almost feels like Marvel left him to rot in that prison with no plan for the future, but now they've been blessed with this perfect opportunity to come back around to that idea with a full circle moment to show how far Peter's come since those days. Stopping that sail on the ferry was one of the first things Peter did as Spider-Man, and it was an absolute disaster. So now bringing the Scorpion back into Peter's life would be a really exciting way to contrast his growth and seeing how he's come into his own as a superhero. It has been a very steep downward spiral into depression for him since then. So I think just seeing that personality shift as the characters interact again would be really exciting. And coming off the back of No Way Home, they have a chance to adapt a very famous story from the comics where J. Jonah Jameson funds the Scorpion. We can continue to see the consequences of that memory wipe spell where Peter was given his identity back, as now it has driven J. Jonah Jameson mad trying to figure out who this masked menace is. I would love if over the course of this trilogy we give J. Jonah Jameson an actual character arc that lets him grow. Start him out as this cartoonishly evil antagonist using the money he's gotten from his show going viral to fund the Scorpion and finally find out who Spider-Man is once and for all. Not only would the Scorpion be a physical threat for Peter, but the idea of losing his identity again would scare the hell out of him and be a great motivator in this fight. It finally gives Jameson something to do, it reestablishes Peter's identity crisis, and finally lets the Scorpion get his revenge. Everybody wins in this scenario, except for Spider-Man, but I want him to be miserable. There is such a complex and dynamic relationship to explore between those two in live action that we have not nearly scratched the surface on, and the best way to start that story is by using the Scorpion here and having Jameson fund him to unmask Spider-Man. I am very passionate about this idea, and I really hope that Marvel end up doing something like it, because Scorpion is such a cool character that I feel like has not gotten a big breakout moment to show the world that, and this is their opportunity to do so. And then there's a character like Tombstone, a mob boss who basically has to be involved in stories like this. He's one of the most infamous crime bosses in the entire Marvel universe, so of course he's gonna step up when he could finally obtain ultimate power in New York City's underworld. I know I just spent like 5 minutes talking about Scorpion, but I really don't have much else to say about Tombstone. I don't know as much about him as I do other characters. I feel like he's pretty straightforward as a mobster villain for Spider-Man to fight, but he is a natural choice to be included in this film. But if Brand New Day really is to be a crime story, then I think it's mandatory to include Tombstone. He makes more sense than any other villain on this list, as he's pretty much the most powerful crime boss not named Wilson Fisk, so I would be very interested to see what they can do with his character in this film. Especially as a villain that Spider-Man can't just punch and kick to defeat, it would honestly force them to give us some really creative action scenes, which I think is something you always want to prioritize. But if there's a character I do really want to talk about, it's Boomerang, because that choice came out of nowhere. If you told me to name 25 different villains who I think could fit in Spider-Man Brand New Day, I don't think Boomerang would have even cracked the top 50. But now that the idea has been put out there, I'm kind of obsessed with it. Never in my life did I expect we'd see him in live action outside of maybe like an opening action scene, and maybe that's what they're doing here, someone who Peter just defeats at the start of the movie and a character who can't exactly carry a film by themselves. But what if Marvel went bold with it and tried to give him a larger role in the film? The most notable thing Boomerang has done in the comics, besides being the guy you confuse with Captain Boomerang, is that at one point he was Peter's roommate, and I think that they kind of need to adapt that story here. In the comics, Fred, his name is Fred by the way, Fred wanted to try and get help from Spider-Man, so he decided to accept an ad from Peter Parker to be his roommate due to the popular rumor that Peter Parker and Spider-Man were friends. And because of that, they grow to have this genuine bond together where Peter is able to look past his criminal history as he comes to genuinely appreciate the guy. So what if we turn that on its head here, and we have Boomerang unknowingly accept Peter's request to be his roommate because rent ain't cheap in New York City, and it forces these characters together. It creates this ticking time bomb in the house as they're both going out at night, one to cause crime and one to stop it. And could you imagine how much it would hurt Peter if he found out that his roommate is a supervillain? If we thought he had trust issues now, they would get so much worse that he's not going to trust someone to pour a cup of coffee for him. But I also think it could give him a very interesting perspective on the criminal underworld. Now that he's gotten to know one of these criminals, it could shatter his worldview and pull him out of this pit of vengeance he's been in. Maybe you can have it so the entire movie, Peter has been so tunnel visioned into getting these criminals behind bars because they're threatening the safety of other people, and it's only gotten him more and more angry throughout the film. And so now seeing that his friend is one of those same people would be the wake-up call he needs to have a more sympathetic look at these criminals. And maybe that's how he stops Mr. Negative. He can't physically outpower him, but if he can appeal to Martin Lee at the center of it all, he could stop a war that would get thousands of innocent people killed. And it's all thanks to none other than Boomerang of all characters. So yeah, while his inclusion might have come completely out of nowhere, I can absolutely see the vision here, and I have become obsessed with the idea of putting him in this movie. And the last of these rumored villains is, I actually have no idea. The only information we have on them is that casting sheet saying that it's going to be a female between 30 and 50, and besides that, nobody's even given us an inkling of an idea of what to expect, which is very exciting to me because that means it's once again time for some rampant speculation. The only clue we have comes from the ever unreliable Jeff Snyder saying that Sarah Snook is rumored to play a secondary villain in the movie, which could mean practically anything because there's no shortage of female Spider-Man characters. But if I were a betting man, I would put money on this character being Silver Sable. If you're already gonna rip off Spider-Man PS4, you might as well go all out with it. Besides, the alternative is Screwball, and none of us want that, unless she's brutally hit by 7 cars. Maybe in the aftermath of Fisk's reign in New York City, the new mayor hires Silver Sable International as this overcorrection to the gang war that's happening in this city, trying to do whatever they can to eliminate crime and make this city a safer place, if that's even a possibility, as the city almost becomes an active war zone. And as part of that overcorrection, Silver Sable could come in and try and just straight up kill these crime bosses, and you have Peter in there, now with this renewed sense of sympathy, trying to stop her from killing them as he believes in rehabilitation. Then by the end of the film, they can start working together, and maybe that's how Peter stops this whole gang war from happening in the first place. But it's that kind of conflict between these two characters that I think would add a lot of depth to the story, and really up the scale of this gang war as it threatens the entire city as a whole. That way you would have Peter in the middle of so many different conflicts that it would really sell just how overwhelmed he is as a superhero. Whether it be Tombstone and Mr. Negative going to war over the underworld, discovering that his friend is a supervillain, having the Scorpion hunt him down to once again expose his identity, or Silver Sable trying to kill them all, Peter is going to be stressed out of his mind, and that is the perfect kind of tone I want for this movie. I know that Spider-Man Brand New Day rumors are pretty much a dime a dozen nowadays, but I honestly think these ones could stick. The sources seem more reliable than usual, and with the film starting to shoot in just a few short months, surely some of them have to be correct, right? What I do really like about this set of villains though, is that they're so wildly unexpected. For what seems like a year, we all thought the options were either Spider-Man and Daredevil team up, or Spider-Man and Venom team up, so to see them go a completely different direction than we all expected with a gang war adaptation, as we see all these crime families come to head, is really exciting and continues the narrative they've been setting up for the longest time in some very surprising and compelling ways. And despite the fact that these are all just rumors at the end of the day, I do think it's very fun to pitch off of these rumors and see what could be, just to show that even the most unlikely ideas like Boomerang in a modern Spider-Man movie could be done in such an emotionally dynamic way. It's honestly just nice to get literally any kind of Spider-Man news, because I'm getting more and more excited for this movie every single day, and I have complete faith that director Destin Daniel Cretton is going to deliver a truly special street-level Spider-Man film. Okay, this video has gone on way too long for rumors that'll probably age like milk within the day it's released, so I'm gonna go ahead and end things there. Who do you think will be the villain of Spider-Man Brand New Day? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, you may as well give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm gonna start a rumor saying that you smell, and I promise you, you don't want that, so you might as well just subscribe.